I repaid Ethan Shun's debts, poured resources into reviving his fortunes, and finally got engaged to him as I'd always wished. Yet he still abandoned me in the fire, choosing instead to rescue his childhood sweetheart who'd once discarded him without so much as a backward glance. As my flesh burned, the system whispered in my ear, "Mission failed. You have one final chance. Would you like to change targets?" Standing in the alley where I'd saved Ethan in my previous life, I refused firmly. No need. Change targets? Impossible. The bitterness I've tasted this lifetime, he should savor it too. The day Chloe Lynn asked to meet me, the building happened to catch fire, trapped under a fallen beam. My skin blistered from the licking flames. Chloe and I were both trapped by the inferno. Meanwhile, my fiancé Ethan, alerted by my call, was rushing to the scene. As the fire grew, so did the weight in my chest, until Chloe's voice and Ethan's footsteps arrived simultaneously. "Ethan, you came for me. It hurts." I twisted my ankle. He scooped her up without hesitation, though I still heard him call toward my direction. "Luna?" After all, the distress call had come for me. I managed only a faint reply before losing the strength to respond further. Chloe Lynn's scream pierced through. "Run, there's no time left. Ethan, Luna's song can save herself. Ethan, go now. I don't want to die." Chloe's voice trembled with desperate urgency. I knew Ethan Shun could never refuse his childhood sweetheart, the one he'd once cherished above all else. Even our wedding had to be concealed from her. The same Ethan whose brilliance resurrected his corporation from ruin in mere years. Yet, in this moment, he failed to discern the unspoken truth behind my silence. Agony radiated from my leg, crushed beneath the fallen shelves. Ethan left without looking back. Smoke flooded my lungs, the searing fumes blurring his retreating figure. Amidst flesh-scorching torment, the system delivered its verdict first. Mission failed. One final attempt remains. The phantom sting of charred skin lingered. Then I awoke at the beginning, my first arrival in this world. The system's mechanical voice inquired again. "Change your target?" Standing in the alley where I'd once saved Ethan, I answered resolutely, "No." Ethan Shin curled up amidst rotting garbage, strands of blood trickling down his forehead. He didn't see me, emitting faint whimpers through clenched teeth. Perhaps choosing another target would be better then. The system's voice cut off abruptly as I stepped on Ethan's fingers. I ground my heel down harder. Ethan lifted his head, his eyes obscured by the blood matting his face. He couldn't make out my features. Crouching down, I traced his cheekbone with my fingertips and whispered in a tone gentler than my past life, "Don't be afraid. I'm here to save you. Ethan, in my past life, I drank bitterness to its dregs for Ethan Shun. During our romance, I endured his lingering attachment to his childhood sweetheart. Even at death's door, he abandoned me. Change targets? Impossible. The suffering I tasted, he shall taste too." When inexplicably transported to this world, the system introduced my target, Ethan, a fallen heir. After his family's bankruptcy left mountains of debt, his parents leapt from a building. They left Ethan behind, hounded daily by loan sharks to the brink of death. My assigned identity, a vaguely familiar face from Ethan's former social circle. During my first attempt to win him, the system offered beginner's guidance. Love him recklessly, redeem him through unconditional devotion. So, in that past life, I rescued him, sheltered him, cleared his debts. I gave him my all, expecting nothing in return. After warming his heart for 7 years, I finally heard him murmur, "Luna, let's be together." No love, only obligation. The cruelest joke, in the end, he abandoned me to die alone. This lifetime, 18-year-old Ethan Shun awoke to find me seated at his bedside. Luna's song? Meeting his gaze, tears fell as I threw myself against him. The doctor had warned of abdominal injuries. My violent embrace landed precisely on his wound. Ethan's brow furrowed, but I clung desperately, sobbing into his hospital gown, weeping about the perilous rescue that nearly cost me everything. Though dazed, he responded with solemn gratitude. "Thank you." I released him, perching on the mattress's edge. "Ethan, gratitude requires substance." Even strangers expect compensation for life-saving favors, especially when he's become social poison in our circles. My bluntness startled him. Flushing, he stammered, "I'll repay the medical bills. Just currently. I don't need money." I cut in. His shattered phone buzzed then, the caller ID flashing. Chloe. His childhood sweetheart. Chloe Lynn. His voice softened slightly when he answered. "Chloe, I'm fine." Fine? I sat on the edge of the bed, watching his leg encased in plaster, and pressed my lips into a faint smile. The person on the other end clearly didn't care much about his situation either, muttering, "At least you're not dead," before hastily hanging up. Ethan Shun set down the phone and offered me a polite, distant smile. "I can write an IOU. I'll pay you back eventually." I studied him leisurely before uttering the most outrageous words since my rebirth. "Be my boyfriend." The system's robotic voice screeched in my head. "He won't agree." I said, "I can clear your debt. Fund your startup. Don't you want revenge on those who ruined you?" Ethan stared at me, his dark irises faintly misted. Whether from pain or exhaustion, I couldn't tell. Bruises still marked his face, yet his spine stayed straight as it had in his family's heyday. "No need, thank you." As I left the room, the system continued shrieking. "Are you just giving up now? Don't you want to complete the mission and go home?" "I do. Of course I do." "Calm down and listen. We should switch targets. Look, if..." "No." I cut it off. Ethan had his pride and a childhood sweetheart tucked in his heart. Right now, he'd never say yes. In my past life, I was foolish, doing everything for him, yet never claiming credit to his face, letting him believe true selflessness existed in this world. But he should know, everything in this world comes at a price. This will be the first lesson I teach him in my reborn life. Ethan Shun was still wheelchair-bound when discharged from the hospital. I had the chauffeur drive him back to campus. With the car window half lowered, I stood at the gate waving, watching Ethan depart. The system voiced its doubt in my mind. "You're just letting him leave?" "Of course," I replied, "because he'll return soon enough." The system questioned again. I offered no further answer, for I was certain Ethan would come back to me. Last lifetime, I arranged everything for him. His life remained as comfortable as before his family's bankruptcy. Now, without me rushing to shield him, let's see how long he lasts. 4 or 5 days had passed since Ethan returned to campus. Counting the days, I visited his lecture hall. When Ethan arrived at the tiered classroom, he was alone. Navigating the wheelchair up the steps proved difficult solo. He glanced up, seeking help from the nearest classmate, but the boy ducked his head first, rummaging through his desk. Ethan Shun's parted lips closed again as his gaze swept the classroom, met with averted eyes and feigned ignorance. I tugged the brim of my baseball cap lower. A girl in the front row whispered to her neighbor, "How pitiful. If his family hadn't gone bankrupt, no one would dare treat him this way. Will you help him?" The girl shook her head like a rattledrum. "I don't want trouble either." Below the podium, Ethan fidgeted helplessly. Only when the bell rang did the male teacher entering the classroom ask if he needed assistance. After class, I followed Ethan to the cafeteria. In the overcrowded dining hall, his wheelchair made him the sole island of solitude. The press of bodies carried stale odors as I sat with my tray, watching Ethan's wheelchair get repeatedly jostled from the food line. Then a tray-carrying student tripped over him, spilling most of his soup. Ethan hesitated before murmuring, "Sorry." The bump student flared like struck match, tilting his tray deliberately. Greasy food and broth slid down Ethan's face, staining his crisp dress shirt. "The fuck's wrong with your eyes? Cripple?" The cafeteria fell silent as countless eyes turned toward them. Ethan Shun's jade-carved face was etched with unease. He apologized again. "Sorry, the wheelchair makes it difficult." But the other party refused to let it go. I sat at the table, unhurriedly picking up food with my chopsticks. The system urged, "Perfect timing. Player, charge in for a heroic rescue." I didn't move, leisurely finishing the meal before me. After hurling several crude insults at Ethan, the aggressor finally stalked off. Ethan, his hair streaked with food, lowered his eyes and tried to leave, but his wheels caught on something. Helpless under the crowd's gaze, he could only call Chloe Lynn for assistance. I watched him redial multiple times before the call connected, edging closer through the throng. I overheard him ask, "Chloe, could you come help me?" A sharp reply came, "No." Then the line went dead. Ethan stood at the crowd center, yet people avoided him, carving out a lonely circle. Only after placing my tray in the recycling bin did I casually dial Ethan's number. The phone rang for a long time before he answered. Standing outside the cafeteria, I smiled and asked, "Ethan, have you eaten?" He responded with a quiet I pressed further. "Do you still need money? Has anyone been bothering you lately? You should tell me. How have you been at school? Be careful when you go out. Don't let those debt collectors find you again." "I had stuffed eggplant for lunch today. I remember you used to love it. Should I bring some to your school?" Ethan stayed silent while I rambled on my end. A brief pause followed. Suddenly, I asked, "You're upset, aren't you? Who hurt you? Did they come again?" My barrage of questions went unanswered. Finally, Ethan's voice came through, so faint it trembled. "Luna." It sounded like a reluctant admission of weakness. "Can you come find me now?" "Yes," I answered without hesitation. The midday sun burned dizzyingly overhead. I lowered my gaze and smiled. Ethan was like a crane trapped in mud, refusing to bow its head. I'd have to shatter his pride completely before he'd learn. Everything comes at a price. I took Ethan back to my place. After examining Ethan Shun, the private physician advised him to improve his nutrition. "Your leg will heal faster this way." I took the burn ointment from the doctor and applied it to Ethan's temple. Ethan lowered his eyes, letting me tend to him without protest. After putting the ointment away, I lingered by his bedside, brushing a stray lock of hair from his cheek. Ethan instinctively leaned back slightly. "Ethan, have you reconsidered my proposal?" Before he could respond, I continued, "Don't overestimate my kindness. Think of it as a transaction, 3 years of your availability, bought with my money. After that, we'll be strangers again." Silence stretched between us. I leaned closer, my voice softening to a coaxing murmur. "I'm merely offering you an opportunity. No obligations, just business. Once the debt is settled, they'll leave you alone. You can focus entirely on avenging your parents." "Ethan," my gaze held his, "don't you want to see your parents' justice served sooner?" Ethan remained quiet for a long moment. The last streak of sunset light flickered across his face, casting an uncharacteristic loneliness over his features. I waited without pressing further. Even the system interjected, "Player, perhaps we shouldn't push him too hard." Then, abruptly, Ethan spoke. "All right." I repaid all of Ethan Shun's debts right in front of him. The next morning, while pushing Ethan to school at dawn, we happened to collide with Chloe Lynn at the classroom doorway. Truth be told, I hadn't seen much of her in my past life. Ethan had concealed his feelings masterfully. On rare encounters, Chloe would be draped in luxury goods, carrying herself like some haughty princess. Seeing her now, I suddenly realized she'd evidently been pampered too well, unchanged from 18 to 27, forever perched atop her high horse. Chloe carried Dior's latest handbag, diamond earrings glinting harshly. She wrinkled her nose passing me. Ignoring me completely, she addressed Ethan. "Are you all right?" Ethan glanced up at me briefly before shaking his head. I returned her indifference, wheeling Ethan inside as countless eyes tracked us. Then Chloe suddenly shoved past me from behind. "I'll take over." My grip tightened on the handles, unmoving. "My boyfriend needs no assistance from you." Chloe froze, her gaze darting between our faces twice over. Ethan lowered his eyes, avoiding hers. A cold laugh escaped her. "Fine. Ethan Shun, you've got real nerve." As Ethan began to speak, she turned on her heel and stormed off without another glance. Ethan Shun didn't pursue. Yet, from the corner of my eye, I saw him tracing circles on his phone screen. Chloe Lynn's name glowed atop the chat window. The system asked, "Player, will he tell Chloe about your deal?" With certainty, I replied, "Never." To care for Ethan I had him move into my place. I instructed the kitchen to prepare nourishing soups for him daily. That evening after dinner, while the steward wheeled him through the gardens, I went shopping alone. The display case shimmered with paired bracelets. As I deliberated over choices, I failed to notice someone stopping beside me. Luna Song. Looking up, I met Chloe Lynn's striking phoenix eyes. Her smiling gaze showed no trace of our past conflict. I stepped back as she leaned in. You like Ethan Shin? Of course. He's beautiful. Many chased him before. Yet, he never reciprocated. Do you know why? Signaling the clerk to wrap both bracelets, I smiled. Save your gloating. You don't love him now, do you? What frightens you? Chloe. I close the distance. Are you afraid he might choose me? Delusional. Chloe shrugged with practiced nonchalance. Just warning you, don't bet on the wrong horse. Ethan Shun's parents were poor at business management, and he might not fare any better. No need for your concern. Chloe Lynn walked away with brisk, confident strides. The system quipped in my head. I wonder if she'll still be laughing when she sees the male lead achieve fame and fortune later. Oh, she certainly will, I replied, because she couldn't care less. As long as she's willing to turn back, Ethan will always be waiting behind her. That's how it was in the past life. But this lifetime, not so certain anymore. Thanks to me, Ethan's college life passed uneventfully. His leg injury healed remarkably fast, fully recovered in under 3 months. Driven by quiet determination, he juggled academics while laying groundwork for his startup. I recognized his urgency, but deliberately withheld the startup funding I'd provided in our previous lives. The system asked, what's the next move? Nurturing the relationship gradually. The turning point in Ethan's and my relationship came during our 5th month together. It was his birthday, and against all expectations, he came home early, sat reading on the living room sofa, occasionally checking his phone. When I returned at dusk, I grabbed his hand excitedly. You're back so early today. Let's go to this exclusive chef's table I booked. I made the reservation months ago. Ethan froze momentarily before letting me pull him out the door. The shop perched midway up the mountain as our car passed by in the waning light. I piled Ethan Shin's plate high with food. He ate absent-mindedly, stealing glances at a silent phone on the table. After dinner, I tugged him out for a walk. The path behind the courtyard led straight to the summit, where I caught his hand in mine. When my foot caught on a jagged stone along the rugged trail, Ethan's reflexes kicked in. His arm shot out to steady my waist. Let me carry you. I shook my head and pressed a kiss to his lips instead. He startled like a spooked deer, the tips of his ears burning crimson. The mountaintop held its breath. Only the whispering leaves broke the silence. His phone screen blinked 10:00 p.m. We settled on a bench, Ethan and I. At the vibration in his pocket, he snatched the device, only to find spam blinking back at him. I watched his face fall as he thumbed open the messaging app, lingering on Chloe Lynn's chat. Still no notification. 30 more minutes until Chloe's usual bedtime. Ethan's silence stretched, so I kept mine. We both knew what he was waiting for. The clock ticked on. With 15 minutes left, he suddenly killed the screen. Luna, are you cold? He'd given up. I shook my head. Ethan Shun, don't wait anymore. He froze momentarily. I said, it's just a happy birthday. I can say it too. I reserved this private chef months ago, thinking you'd enjoy the meal. You've seemed exhausted lately, so I booked a nutritionist and masseuse for you. I also pre-scheduled fireworks suddenly erupted mid-sentence, cutting me off. Amidst the blooming pyrotechnics, 6 Chinese characters materialized. Happy birthday, Ethan. This feels rushed, kinda tacky. Honestly, I furrowed my brows, glancing sideways at Ethan. Fireworks reflected in his pupils, illuminating his striking features. Ethan, I shouted his name. He turned toward me, leaning in with eyes shimmering like liquid gold. The shadows lifted from his expression. I moved closer to his ear. You know what's worse than not receiving birthday wishes? Oh, there's worse. Like remembering the extravagant parties he used to have, the never-failing cascade of gifts and congratulations. But now, there's just me, I said. I'll remember, even if nobody else does. I'll remember. Ethan, Happy birthday. Ethan finally smiled. Amidst the deafening roar of fireworks, my lips brushed against his cheek. He looked at me, his eyes filled with bursting pyrotechnics, yet still reflecting a tiny version of myself. The next second, he kissed me. The system screeched a mechanical alarm in my head. Ethan Shun's lips touched mine only briefly before parting. He was the first to blush. The system said, "Holy shit." After all, in my past life, Ethan had never initiated a kiss. It was always me who leaned in first. On our way down the mountain, Ethan clasped my hand and never let go. After that night, our relationship progressed by leaps and bounds. Gradually, we began resembling a real couple. Ethan's career also steadily found its footing. 2 years passed in a blink. After witnessing Ethan prepare warm milk for me post-work yet again, the system remarked, "Seems you're progressing much faster this time around. At this gradual pace, a few more years should do the trick, right?" I took small sips of milk on the sofa. "Did you forget? It's because Chloe Lynn never appeared." The system hesitated. "Surely, she wouldn't now." I smiled, counting the days in my head. It was nearly time for Chloe's grandmother to fall ill. In her past life, she had pleaded before Ethan Shun with tearful eyes that made his heart ache unbearably. She was even willing to swallow her pride and beg me. I agreed to Ethan's request, then made one of my own, a deliberately difficult demand, that Ethan must cut all ties with Chloe Lynn. His gaze turned icy for a fleeting moment before softening again. He said, "All right." He kept his word, kept it so thoroughly they never interacted again, yet failed to stop caring for her. Time after time, when Chloe faced crises, he stepped in silently to resolve them. He never crossed boundaries with her. Their phone exchanges were scarce enough to count on one hand, but whenever she stumbled, he'd smooth the path ahead without a word. The system asked what I'd do this time. Truthfully, I thought maybe he'd be different now. He wasn't. I lowered my eyes. He'd still come to me. The night Chloe sought him out, Ethan didn't come home for the first time. I texted, asking where he was. "Working late at the corporation," he replied, telling me to sleep early. So I switched off my phone and fell straight into oblivion. Ethan returned at dawn, exhaustion lining his features. His shirt creased beyond recognition. As I turned in bed, he pulled me into a wordless embrace. The air hung thick with an eerie, suspended quiet. The system broke the silence. "Player, you don't think he'll actually speak up, do you?" "Of course he will." Ethan Shun buried his face in the crook of my neck, his eyelashes still damp with morning dew. "Luna." His voice came out muffled, like sugar crystals clinging together. "A friend's grandmother is ill. He wants to arrange surgery with an overseas specialist. The success rate would be higher, but he can't find the right connections." I turned in his arms and hugged him. "Is this a very close friend?" Ethan paused before answering. "Yes," I said. "Then your friend is mine too. I'll help you figure it out." Ethan lowered his gaze, brushing a kiss against my temple. "Thank you for this." Amused, I sat up. "You know better than anyone." "Ethan, I'd agree to anything you ask." It wasn't entirely a lie. People live for many things in this lifetime, but from the moment I entered this world, my purpose was singular. Ethan Shun. Ethan's eyes darkened as he pulled me closer. "Luna, thank you." Listening to his heartbeat, I asked the system silently, "Want to bet whether he'll admit this friend is Chloe Lynn?" The system hesitated. "Probably not." "No, he will." So I needed to discover it myself before he could tell me with his own words. The doctor had been specially brought in from abroad at great expense. Fortunately, the surgery was a success. A week post-operation, Ethan Shin kept visiting Grandma's place. I bought some fruit and followed behind him. The hospital room door wasn't fully closed. I stood at the threshold, peering inside. Ethan peeled an apple for Grandma, who smiled gratefully. "We owe this all to you. As long as Grandma recovers, that's all that matters." Ethan set the fruit knife aside and stood to leave. "I still have." Chloe Lynn suddenly threw herself against him, wrapping her arms around him, tears glistening in her eyes. Ethan stiffened for a moment before instinctively raising a hand to push her away. Chloe clung tighter. "Ethan, It's all thanks to you that Grandma's getting better. Her sobs grew frantic, leaving Ethan flustered as he patted her back. It's all right now. It's all right. Grandma will be fine. Chloe lifted her tear-streaked face. Let me treat you to dinner tonight. I can't. Ethan had told me this morning before leaving that we'd go out to eat together. Chloe's voice softened pleadingly. It's been so long since we've shared a meal. I watched hesitation flicker across Ethan's face before he finally relented. All right. Before his reply even finished, I abruptly pushed the hospital room door open. Ethan Shun, who was being held by Chloe Lynn, suddenly turned pale and broke free from her arms. Luna. I set down the fruit and greeted with a smile. Grandma. Ethan said you've been recovering well. I've been busy and only just found time to visit, I said. Grandma looked at Ethan with some confusion. Ethan explained, this is the friend who helped refer the doctor for you. Friend? I scoffed inwardly. I didn't stay long before leaving. As I descended the stairs, I heard Ethan chasing after me, calling, Luna, Luna. I ignored him and kept walking. The hallway was crowded. Ethan stumbled over someone, then bumped into another, drawing curses along the way. I walked on, deaf to the commotion. Finally, Ethan caught my hand and pulled me into his arms. I'm sorry, Luna. Don't be angry with me. I didn't mean to hide that it was Chloe from you. You were afraid I'd be upset, afraid I wouldn't help you because of Chloe. So you kept it from me, then distanced us in front of her grandmother. Ethan, is my sincerity really that worthless? He froze, as if caught off guard by my sudden question. I met his gaze, tears suddenly spilling. Panicked, Ethan wiped them away with his sleeve. I was wrong. Luna, please don't cry. It's all my fault. If you don't want me to see Chloe Lynn anymore, I won't. I remained impassive. You know I'll forgive you. Because I like you, I'll let you get away with anything. There isn't another fool like me in this world, throwing away millions for 3 years with one person. You knew that deal was just an excuse. You knew I liked you all along. You've always known everything. You think I'm stupid too, don't you? No, not at all. Ethan Shun held me tight, his voice trembling. Luna is the smartest person in the world. It's my fault, all my fault. I'll never see Chloe Lynn again. Right before my eyes, he deleted and blocked Chloe's WeChat. I wiped my tears, struggled free from his embrace, and still refused to acknowledge him. Ethan was busy. I'd always known. His corporation was in its early stages, with endless paperwork every day. I never interfered with any corporate matters. He bore it all alone. Back then, even visiting Chloe's grandmother had to be squeezed in as a passing errand. Yet now he carved out hours daily just to appease me. During international business trips with back-to-back flights, Ethan would call without catching up on sleep. Luna, is there anything you want? I said, no. Then let me choose for you. There wasn't a trace of impatience in his tone, only eager anticipation. Last business trip, when I said no, he bought everything he'd eyed, enough necklaces to loop around my entire neck. I sighed, just get one thing. The obedient reply came, okay. After a pause, I added, I'm not mad at you anymore. Ethan inhaled sharply. I'll book tomorrow's flight, coming back to see you immediately. I laughed. What about work? You matter more. I pressed my lips together, smiling. When the call ended, moonlight pooled at my feet. I remembered my past life's illness, when Ethan had to leave for an overseas business trip. Feverish in bed, clutching blankets listlessly, I heard him call before leaving. Luna, I'm heading out. I made a non-committal sound. Someone as attentive as him couldn't have missed the rasp in my voice. I never asked him to stay, just played the self-sacrificing wife from the system's guidebook, never interfering with his work, love, or its absence. It's painfully obvious, really, and the system strategies? Genuinely idiotic. A mechanical voice grumbled in my head. Other players followed this exact script. Then I wished them luck. Returning to the present, the system's prompt arrived seconds later. Uncharacteristically hesitant. Player, I think we've got this round in the bag. He deleted all his childhood friends. He kept them in his contacts last lifetime. Not quite yet. I said. What's missing? The final choice from our previous life. But this time, it doesn't matter who he chooses. I accompanied Ethan Shun to the gala, wearing an evening gown he picked for me. Several guests turned to look at me, their eyes widening with admiration. While Ethan discussed business elsewhere, I wandered through the ballroom with a cocktail. The second floor was quieter. I leaned against the balcony railing, watching the lake below. The security had warned us earlier. The lake was dangerously deep, best observed from a distance. After some time, my appointment finally arrived. Chloe Lynn's exhaustion showed through her makeup. Here to gloat, Ethan deleted me. You think that means you've won? I shook my head. That's not what I think. I used to believe fighting for him might make Ethan love me too. Later, I realized how many girls share that delusion. Because he's kind, gentle. Eventually, I understood. No matter how he competed, his heart belonged to only one person. Chloe, I've always envied you. However you acted out, he'd stay by your side. I gave her a small smile. Will you gamble one last time with me? His career is on the rise now. It won't be long before he turns his life around. If you win, I'll bow out gracefully to preserve your reputation. Chloe Lynn studied me coldly, as if trying to discern how much truth lay beneath my words. You'd really give him up? I smiled. His heart was never mine to keep. She arched an eyebrow and agreed readily, because she knew it would always be her. Minutes later, the sound of someone plunging into water echoed through the hall. I bobbed in the fathomless lake, choking on mouthfuls of dark water. A crowd gathered along the shore. I saw Ethan Shun sprint forward and dive in without hesitation. The late autumn water bit like knives, gasping between coughs. I watched the approaching figure halt midway. He cradled a slender silhouette instead, swimming back toward land. Just like that day in the burning building, when he carried Chloe to safety without a backward glance. There's another one. She's going under. Belated security personnel jumped in, locking arms around my waist to drag me ashore. Chloe huddled in Ethan's jacket within the circle of his arms. The moment his feet touched land, Ethan released her and strode toward me. Luna. I didn't know. The waiter draped a blanket over my shoulders. The beautiful dress Ethan had picked for me this afternoon was now tangled with water weeds. The water in my lungs choked me as violently as the smoke in my nostrils. After coughing several times, I finally lifted my gaze to meet his. He moved to embrace me, his expression lost, his face ashen. It was too dark. I couldn't see me, yet saw Chloe Lynn clearly enough. I coughed again, watching him with an impassive face. Ethan Shun kept his eyes downcast as Chloe's voice called for him behind him, each plea softer than the last. But he didn't turn around. Ethan seized my hand. My skin was ice. His warmth flooded through instantly, like a flame igniting from my fingertips. I didn't cry, didn't demand answers, just slowly withdrew my hand from his. When Ethan refused to let go, I pried his fingers loose one by one. I said, I don't want you anymore. Ethan, I don't want you anymore. Luna's words echoed relentlessly in Ethan's ears. That calm voice. No tears, no fury, no accusations. Ethan couldn't bring himself to look at her. She adjusted the blanket around herself and rose slowly. Ethan followed behind her, step for step. Luna's chauffeur arrived to take her home. Ethan Shun trailed behind them in his car all the way to the villa. The steward gasped upon seeing her drenched state, voice trembling. Come inside quickly. Miss, I'll have the kitchen prepare hot ginger tea for you. Where's young Master Shun? Luna Song walked straight past without answering. Just as the door was closing, Ethan heard her murmur. He won't be coming. Ethan texted her. She didn't respond. He called. She wouldn't pick up. Ethan had never been one to overstep boundaries, like those stammering relatives who kept their distance after his family's bankruptcy, or Chloe Lynn, who suddenly grew cold and reluctant to speak with him. He understood them all. Occasionally, Chloe would message to check if he was still alive. Never more than necessary. Ethan knew her parents had instructed these courtesies. Yet, even such measured kindness felt rare in adversity. He remembered her goodwill and understood her position. So, he no longer treated her with their former closeness. The youthful flutter between them had been ground to dust by reality. Only Luna's song defied this pattern. She blazed like wildfire erupting in deepest winter, scorching him with near-painful intensity, so fierce he wondered if frostbite had conjured the heat. She was spoiled, capricious. They'd rarely crossed paths before, yet when she saw him at his lowest, her first words were asking him to be her boyfriend. It felt like deliberate teasing. Ethan Shun refused. She didn't press further. Later, when everyone turned their backs on him, she alone came for him. When she brought it up again, Ethan thought, even if it was teasing, so be it. After all, things had already come to this. He had nothing left to lose anyway. To his surprise, Luna's song neither mocked him, ordered him around, nor scorned him. She genuinely wanted him to recover. When the steward wheeled him to the garden for walks, he'd speak of Luna. He knew about that inexplicable deal too, yet never treated Ethan with disrespect. The young mistress is willful, but she's a good soul at heart. She just doesn't understand. Understand what? How to interact with people. The master and mistress were rarely home. Her upbringing lacked that crucial piece. She never learned proper social graces, nor how to express affection for someone. Her solution is to shower them with kindness, fulfilling their every wish. Habits forged over years are hard to break. She won't change course until she's crashed headfirst into that wall. The steward sighed, his tone grave. Don't deceive her. If you don't care for her, she'll walk away on her own. Back then, Ethan didn't understand. Caught between two dilemmas, he told his first lie. From utterance to exposure, barely 2 weeks passed. Watching Luna Song's tears fall, Ethan Shun felt his heart crumple like paper. If she didn't love him, she'd have left on her own. How could she not? Ethan longed to place her atop the pinnacle of his heart. On one side stood his elders. On the other, the woman who owned his soul. He feared she'd reject him if she grew to dislike Chloe Lynn. Facing his grandmother's questions, he lied again, terrified he'd never be worthy. Just friends. When could he proudly declare their love to the world? How high must he climb to truly deserve her? Ethan didn't know. He only knew to claw his way upward. Faster, just a little faster. Yet the harder he strained to reach her, the further he pushed her away. By the time he noticed, their bond hung by a thread. Nothing else mattered if he lost her. After his parents' suicide, Ethan kept vigil at the memorial for 3 days before the thought crystallized. Then Luna appeared. Once again, she became the exception. Groveling, dignity, be damned. Anything to keep Luna. She was the one thing he couldn't release. I swiftly boarded a flight abroad. After staying with my parents for half a year, I moved elsewhere on my own. The steward occasionally messaged me, reminding me to take care of my health overseas. Sometimes he'd chat with me, asking about my life in a tone that felt like a different person altogether. The system said, analysis indicates an 80% probability the person on the other end is Ethan Shun. I replied, I'd bet 100%. When are you going back? How will you advance the plot without seeing Ethan Shun? I said, no rush. He'll come knocking himself. Then I ended up staying for months, until I saw Ethan Shun's frequent corporate successes flooding my social media feed. My account received a transfer, neither excessive nor lacking. Precisely the principal plus interest from these years. Only then did I tell the system. Soon, the day Ethan came was an ordinary morning. I lay in bed, watching anime, while the system screeched in my head. Where's the male lead? Where's Ethan Shun? Didn't you say he'd come find you? It's been ages. Where is he? This is our last chance. I scratch my arm. Give the man some time. Will you? It's been too long already. The system was breaking down. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, a knock sounded at my door. I draped a shawl over my shoulders and answered. Winter gusts swirled snowflakes into the room. The figure at my threshold had frost-dusted hair, half turned white by the storm. Ethan Shun had fair skin and a refined demeanor, like a noble scholar from ancient times. Now, with dark circles under his eyes, he resembled a seductive fox spirit from Liaojai, one that drained men of their vitality. The system shrieked again. He's here. Ethan lowered his gaze at me. Luna, I slammed the door shut. The system screamed a third time. He's come to apologize. What are you doing? A happy ending is within reach. We're almost there, I said. I'm just annoyed. Annoyed about what? Last life, I was burned alive. This life, I got dumped in freezing water. I suffered all the consequences while he got off scot-free. The system fell silent for a moment, then chose to shut up. Winter this year was bitterly cold. Few ventured outside, and those who did were bundled up in layer upon layer. When I opened the window for air, the wind lashed at my face, sharp as a blade. The stairwell carried both wind and snow. I stepped out briefly to take the trash downstairs. Ethan stood in the corner watching me, following me down and back up, his steps deliberately slow. He wanted to talk. I ignored him, so he stayed quiet. When I closed the door, he remained outside, unmoving, his face flushed red. I woke from my nap, feeling refreshed. The system blared alarms in my head. Player, the male lead's vital signs are crashing. After dressing, I stepped outside to find Ethan shin curled up in a corner. Snow on his hair had frozen into a thin crust of ice. His consciousness nearly gone. I called for an ambulance on my phone. The moment I hung up, his hand clamped around mine. A chill seeped through me like a blade. Shuddering, I tried to shake free of Ethan's grip, but he held on with desperate strength. I followed the ambulance to the hospital. Ethan lay on the bed as warmth gradually returned to his body. The system chirped, locked in. This round's in the bag. Ignoring it, I yawned and climbed onto Ethan's hospital bed, shoving him aside. The system panicked. Player, what if you actually kill the male lead this time? Then he'd deserve it. I replied. I woke to find myself trapped in someone's arms. Opening my eyes to Ethan's obsidian gaze, something like joy flickered across his face before his lips fell back into their usual line. Luna. He bent close, his whisper grazing my ear. Stop being angry with me, please. I met his eyes, voice flat. Do you have a death wish? What if I hadn't saved you? Ethan shook his head. His free arm tightened around my waist as he pressed his forehead to mine. I'm not afraid. Ethan's shin should have died long ago. Luna. He buried his face in the crook of my neck, his warm breath ghosting over my collarbone before he nipped lightly at the skin. His voice carried a barely perceptible edge of madness. My life is yours to take. If you won't save me, consider the debt repaid. System, does anyone else feel like the male lead is acting? Unhinged, I met Ethan Shun's gaze. The dark circles beneath his eyes made him look like he'd survived a grave illness. Yet faint traces of his former gentleness lingered there. Maybe, I said, then drove my fist hard into Ethan's stomach. His grip slackened just enough for me to wrench free and land on my feet. I'm not angry with you. I just don't love you anymore. I added, I have a date with someone I like. We're catching the game tonight. And turned to leave. Ethan froze. I walked straight ahead without hesitation. Luna. When I didn't stop, he yanked out his foreneedle, barefoot and desperate, lunging after me. I intercepted the nurse at the door. He just self-removed his foreline. Blood dripped from Ethan's hand as two nurses restrained him. I slipped through the gathering crowd with ease. Luna. Luna. Don't go. Ethan screamed my name like a madman, but I never looked back. System. Since when did you have plans to watch sports? I lied. My mind was set solely on going home. How could I possibly be in the mood to see anyone else? The system fell silent. I lost myself in video games at the hotel for 2 days straight before returning home, only to find Ethan Shun waiting at my doorstep again. He'd learned his lesson this time, waiting inside his car. The moment he saw me, he hurried over. I walked inside, and he trailed behind me like a dejected puppy, not saying a word. As I swung the door shut, his hand suddenly wedged into the gap. I wasn't exactly gentle. Ethan's once well-defined knuckles instantly swelled red. He pleaded, Luna, just talk to me, please. Just for a moment. Only a moment. I glanced at him and released my grip on the door handle. Ethan changed his shoes and sat on the couch while I rummaged through the cabinet for ointment and tossed it to him. He stared at me, unblinking. I smirked mockingly. What? You expect me to apply it for you too? Ethan lowered his gaze and twisted the cap open himself. The silence shattered when he finally spoke. Yesterday. How did it go? The question seemed to pain him. I pretended to think, furrowing my brows. Got rejected. Turns out he has a girlfriend, the cheer captain, no less. I spun the lie effortlessly, watching Ethan's expression twist uncomfortably, as if torn between joy and concern for my feelings. He pressed his lips together tightly. I asked him, "Are you happy?" Ethan's chin shook his head. "Luna, you're angry with me. Hit me if you must. Curse me if you will." That day, it was too dark. I didn't realize it was you. But it was still my fault. Blame me however you need to. Without a word, I slapped him across the face. The corner of Ethan's eye flushed red, the stark contrast vivid against his pale complexion, a twisted kind of beauty. My hand stung from the impact. Ethan lowered his gaze, took my hand, and kneaded it gently, then asked, "Does it hurt?" The system shrieked, "Player, aren't you supposed to go back?" Of course. But before that, I'll collect a little interest from my past life. I've changed my mind. I released Ethan's hand, hooked a finger under his chin, and studied him. He stayed perfectly still. "I just realized your profile resembles that boy's," I mused, except he'd never wear corporate attire like this. Lowering my eyes, I smiled. "Do you still want to be with me?" "Ethan." His answer came without hesitation. "Yes." The next day, Ethan and I flew back together. The steward nearly wept at the sight of me, lamenting how much thinner I'd become. I'd swapped Ethan's suit for casual wear. He was acting like a college boy. I ordered him to put away his things, then shut the door, leaving him outside again. Ethan shun, and I started dating once more. No contracts this time. He accommodated me. Money wasn't an issue for me, so he devoted himself to keeping me happy. The real challenge was what money couldn't solve. Ethan's mind revolved around two things: corporate affairs and devising ways to delight me. I enjoyed making him mimic that boy's mannerisms. I mentioned he loved basketball. Ethan took up the sport. I said he disliked watermelon. Ethan never touched it again. I claimed he carried the scent of orange blossoms. Ethan risked allergic reactions to spritz on cologne daily. Whenever he complied, I'd embrace him and whisper, "You're my favorite." 2 months after returning, I ran into Chloe Lynn at the mall. Her haughtiness had faded. She seemed steadier when she saw me. I greeted her. Her gaze held a quiet intensity as she said, "You promised you bow out." I did. I smiled. Then Ethan begged me back. Chloe's chest rose sharply before her voice cracked. "I regret it." "Regret what?" "Agreeing to your wager back then, letting Ethan get close to you." "Regret for not realizing sooner," she said. "Stop tormenting him." Luna's song. "I don't love him, and I know you don't either. Don't torture him anymore." Luna's song. I smiled at her. Our gazes briefly crossed in the air. Chloe Lynn didn't love him. I'd always known. She used him as a stepping stone, a safety net for her falls, a scepter to flaunt her status. You're the least qualified person to say those words. But I promise you, that evening, Ethan brought me a gift when he came home. A limited edition bunny plush from a new overseas toy factory. I hugged him and kissed his cheek. Ethan leaned down to kiss my forehead. Then he tied on an apron and headed to the kitchen to cook. I sneaked up behind him to watch him chop vegetables. Ethan said, "The kitchen's smoky. Luna, go wait outside." I'd refused to eat the housekeeper's cooking and made Ethan learn instead. After mastering it, the kitchen became his domain. When I told friends, they envied me, saying I'd had great foresight to find someone both capable and devoted. I only smiled in response. "Ethan," I rose on tiptoes, wrapping my arms around him from behind. "Let me tell you a secret." "What?" The system in my head tried to intervene. "Player, perhaps you shouldn't say it. I'm afraid speaking it aloud might turn you into sworn enemies." I ignored him, leaning close to his ear. "There's no boy I like." The chopping knife clattered into the sink. A crimson line bloomed across Ethan Shun's hand. He stood frozen for a long moment before turning to crush me against his chest. "Luna, you're lying to me." Like a man possessed, he laughed through tears, pressing kisses to my temple. "Luna, Luna." I answered each time, "Ethan carried me from the kitchen, his wounded hand still bleeding as if he didn't feel it all. Truly none? None, he murmured, seeking confirmation again and again. I answered again and again. He pinned me to the sofa. Feather-like kisses dusted my eyelids. He demanded, Luna, Luna, are you lying to me again? Making me happy just to say it was all pretend, leaving me with empty hands. Punish me any other way, but not this joke. Luna, Luna, just not this one lie. Warm tears dripped onto my collarbone. Ethan buried his face against me, the words a sigh. Please, Luna. I wound my arms around his neck. I love you. Ethan, I love you. Those very words were the cruelest lie of all. Ethan Shun's body went rigid. I gave him a nudge. Get up. Let me dress your wound. He scrambled up and numbly let me tend to him until the bandage was secured. Suddenly, he stood, climbing the stairs with unsteady steps. I heard something clatter in his room. Urgent. Ethan descended, holding a red velvet box. Without pause, he dropped to one knee beside me. Luna, marry me. The diamond ring in the box refracting dazzling light, squinting against the glare. I laughed. Aren't you moving too fast? Ethan looked up. The corners of his eyes flushed crimson. Not fast enough, he said. I'm just afraid. Luna, afraid you'll say this was all a lie in the next breath. Let it be a lie then. He sighed. Just let it last a little longer. I waved my hand before him. Well, put it on me. His movements were oddly deliberate. That simple circle took an eternity to slide home. When it finally settled, I murmured, fit surprisingly well. I measured your finger every night, Ethan admitted. He pulled me into an embrace, forehead resting against my shoulder. Knew you'd refuse. Still hoped you might forget him someday. Prepared it anyway, just in case. I stayed silent. Luna. Ethan Shin let out a sigh, muttering like in a dream, I love you. The system remained silent for days. Ethan moved at lightning speed, announcing their engagement publicly that very day, selecting dates by the next, then diving into bridal gown fittings, venue bookings, invitations, honeymoon plans, one after another, methodically executed. Friends came with congratulations, then whispered to me, this feels rather sudden, doesn't it? Honestly, it's like Mr. Shin wants the wedding scheduled for next week. I fiddled with the tassel on my bag and replied, not sudden at all. I can't wait either. The system suddenly interjected. I do think this is rushed. Rushed how? Just a feeling. Maybe we should linger a bit longer, double check things. But I can't wait. I want to go home. The system fell silent. Ethan was swamped, with corporate matters easing slightly. He now poured every hour into wedding preparations, triple-checking each detail until perfection. This ceremony would dwarf their previous lifetimes in grandeur. As Ethan debated floral arrangements with planners over the phone, I nursed a yogurt bowl he prepared while watching TV. Background noise grew intrusive. He stepped onto the balcony, sliding the door shut. I asked the system, the moment we marry, we leave immediately? Same day, right after the ceremony? What exactly triggers it? After a prolonged pause, the system stammered, perhaps, after the ring exchange? Really? Can I leave right after exchanging rings? You'll have to wait until your physical death. After some thought, I said, then just have the officiant stab me. Wouldn't that be a bit much? Fine, then let the chandelier fall on me. Player, your chosen methods are all so violent. There's no pretty way to die. I retorted. It fell silent before whispering after a long pause. Must you go? You could choose to stay. You know, Ethan Shun loves you deeply now, and your family background is excellent. Everything would go smoothly if you remained here. You don't have anyone particularly close over there, and your life can't compare to this one. Luna's song, for the first time, it called me by name. Wouldn't staying be better? I finished the yogurt in my bowl. Ethan entered after his phone call, taking the empty dish while asking if I was still hungry. I kissed his cheek. Not hungry. I need to lose weight to fit into that beautiful bridal gown. Ethan's eyes sparkled. Luna, the gown isn't what's beautiful. You are. I smiled. watching him carry the bowl into the kitchen. His figure disappeared from view. Only then did I answer, "No way." The wedding day was bustling. I didn't have to lift a finger throughout. I woke up, had my hair and makeup done, then waited at the hotel for the ceremony to begin. Ethan Shin couldn't see me, but he sent me countless messages. Yawning, I replied to a few. When it officially started, all the lights in the venue focused solely on me. I listened as the MC's resonant voice recited the script, painting Ethan's and my love story as some tragic yet beautiful tale. I wasn't really paying attention, only catching words like redemption and one and only. Thunderous applause erupted from the audience. The red carpet stretched so long it made my vision swim. With my father unable to return from abroad in time, I walked forward alone, lifting my dress. Ethan, ever the rule breaker, saw me struggling and came to hold my train. Another wave of cheers rose from below. Under the dazzling chandelier, Ethan looked down at me, his dark eyes reflecting only my silhouette. I saw it clearly, so beautiful. His gaze never wavered, as if afraid I'd vanish the next second. The MC continued speaking. I glanced up at the sharp-edged chandelier overhead. The system remained silent. The MC asked, "Do you take this man to be your husband, to enter into the covenant of marriage? Will you love him, comfort him, honor and keep him, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, forsaking all others, and be faithful to him as long as you both shall live?" I said, "I do." The officiant then asked Ethan Shen, "Do you take this woman to be your wife, to enter into the covenant of marriage? Will you love her, comfort her, honor and keep her, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, forsaking all others, and be faithful to her as long as you both shall live?" Ethan looked at me, the dark circles beneath his eyes now faded, joy blooming at the corners of his brows, like springtime peeking through winter branches. His gaze traced every contour of my face. Then, with solemn tenderness, he answered, "I do." I smiled at him, and Ethan smiled back as he took the ring from the flower girl to place on my finger. None of last time's flustered hesitation remained. Taking the other ring, I clasped his hand. Ethan's hands were beautifully shaped. The swelling from when the door had crushed them last time had completely vanished. Each knuckle stood defined, and I couldn't resist running my fingers over them twice. From the corner of my eye, I caught Ethan's lips curling into a doting smile. I slid the ring onto his finger. The countdown began. 5. Thunderous applause erupted from the audience. 4. The officiant started speaking again. 3. Ethan Shin looked down at me, his eyes shimmering with unspoken emotion. 2. I parted my lips, and he leaned closer to hear my words. 1. Goodbye. Ethan staggered back as the razor-sharp chandelier pierced through my body. Crimson bloomed across the white gauze. Chaos erupted. Screams, sobs, as Ethan lunged forward, collapsing to his knees beside me. Warm tears fell into my mouth. I heard him calling my name. "Luna. Luna. Look at me. Look at me." Then I heard nothing more. I found myself in a room flooded with white light. The system's voice announced, "Mission accomplished. Initiating extraction. Reality reintegration requires buffer time. Please wait. Player." I lay on the ground, yet felt weightless, adrift. After the automated message, the system asked, "Player, do you hate Ethan Shin?" "No." It hesitated. I said, "You don't believe me?" After a static flicker, it replied, "Ugh, that's ruthless." I couldn't help but laugh. Honestly, I thought I'd been merciful enough. I remembered Chloe Lynn standing before me that day, her usual sharpness softened by something like pity. She'd said, "Stop torturing him. Luna, what exactly are you pitying him for?" I asked the system. The system emitted static noise, remaining silent for a long while. "You were the ones who chose him. I was the one who endured the cold bench waiting for someone who never came home. I was the one who worked diligently to pave his way. I was the one who received no replies, yet saw him strolling with Chloe Lynn. I was the one who endured searing pain, watching my fiancé rescue another woman. I was the one who couldn't return home. I was the one who died in the fire. I was the one who nearly drowned in icy water. And I was the one impaled by a chandelier at my own wedding." Ethan Shin never suffered the physical torment of debt collectors or endured society's scorn. He completed his studies undisturbed and smoothly established his corporation just because he loved and lost. Oh, how utterly tragic. I scoffed. The system fell silent again. The pure white space grew still. The progress bar reached its end. Suddenly, the system spoke. I'm sorry. I stayed silent. Luna Song, it said, may you find peace and prosperity hereafter. I replied, naturally. A blinding white light flashed. Daylight streamed through the windows. Sunlight filtered through the lattice. The air carrying the distinct scent of cat. Machi lay sprawled on my pillow, belly exposed, leaving 4 or 5 white hairs behind. Still softly purring, I buried my face in her little belly and took a deep breath. Machi stirred awake, blinking sleepily before nestling into my arms. Finding a comfortable position, I leaned down and kissed her furry little head. The tangible warmth brought me comfort. I was home. Epilogue. After Luna Song's death, Ethan Shin wasn't as devastated as one might expect. Time seemed to rewind, returning him to his 18th year. Kneeling in the memorial hall, he listened to muffled sobs of restrained grief around him. His gaze remained fixed on Luna's portrait. The photograph showed a faint smile that never reached her eyes. Just like in those final seconds when the chandelier fell during their wedding. She had smiled the same way then, almost joyful, yet profoundly distant. She smiled and told him with unsettling calm, "Goodbye, Mr. and Mrs." Song stood behind him, having rushed back from abroad. The aristocratic woman wept with practiced elegance. Tears traced Mrs. Song's cheeks as she dabbed them away with a handkerchief, yet they kept falling without end. When seeing the couple off, they maintained a frosty demeanor, as though words with him were unnecessary. In the final moment before Mr. Song departed, Ethan Shin caught the venomous glint in his eyes. The agony of losing a child demands an outlet. Ethan knew he would bear the brunt of that fury. Dusk approached. Fine needles of rain pricked his face. Ethan watched their retreating car with impassive stillness. Had they truly loved Luna Song, they'd have noticed long ago she was no longer their daughter. 18-year-old Luna Song had died during a sudden, raging fever. In her suffering, she'd sobbed through calls to her parents, pleading for them to return home just once to see her, only to be coldly pacified. "We're busy. We can't leave. We'll come back when things settle down." "Luna, you're a sensible girl. Don't be difficult. You're an adult now." So Luna Song died alone in that hospital bed, her parents never arriving. The steward later recounted how the hospital had nearly declared time of death. When Luna abruptly revived, though she stopped speaking entirely, her body, now dull as weathered wood, days after discharge, Luna ventured out alone. The steward had intended to accompany her that day, but she refused. That was the day Luna Song met Ethan Shin, like a wooden shell suddenly reanimated with a soul. The steward nearly wiped away tears while recounting it, seeing Miss Luna laugh and cry again. "I can't thank you enough." Ethan merely pressed his lips together then, offering only a faint smile. Back then, Luna was abroad. He worked late into the night for official duties, tossing and turning, sleepless, really, only because Luna wasn't by his side. Those slight deviations from the Luna in his memories gradually unfurled in his mind. They were quite alike, really, just minor differences. But it didn't matter. Ethan thought indifferently. As long as the Luna now was his Luna, that was enough. On the day Luna was buried, the weather was poor. A light drizzle fell. Ethan stood before the casket. The woman lying inside looked serene, as if merely asleep. His fingers twitched, pausing just before his fingertips could graze her cheek. He didn't touch her, only smoothed a stray lock of hair beside her face. "Luna," he murmured softly, "I know. You're still alive." She had left with such quietude, as if there were no attachments left. So this was love, just another lie. And yet, Ethan Shin lowered his gaze. Cold droplets fell onto the coffin, one, then another. His insides twisted as if wrung by invisible hands. He wished she'd lied to him a little longer. "Luna," he sighed, the sound like a sleepwalker's murmur. "I love you." Ethan collapsed after Luna Song's burial. Days without food, drink, or sleep had pushed him past breaking point. His body gave out. When he awoke, Chloe Lynn sat by the bed, watching him with quiet eyes. Ethan opened his eyes and didn't spare her a glance. Chloe said, "The dead won't return. You should make peace with it. She's gone. You need to take care of yourself now." After a pause, she added, "Luna wouldn't want to see you like this." No, she wouldn't care. The room lapsed into brittle silence. Chloe suddenly spoke again. "I'm leaving soon to film director Shun's Desire. Do you need me to?" "No," Ethan cut her off, voice icy. "I want to be alone." Chloe's face tightened with humiliation. She grabbed her bag and left without another word. Ethan Shun watched her go, offering no reminder. Director Shun was a madman. In his relentless pursuit of cinematic perfection, he treated actors as disposable tools. Some had lost their minds after filming Wrapped. Others plunged into icy waters midwinter for a single shot, crippled by lifelong ailments. A few even carried permanent disabilities. The hospital room window cracked open a sliver. The wind held through. Ethan stared at the sterile white wall and sighed. "Would this make you happier, Luna?" Mr. Song's retaliation came swift and brutal. Ethan never bothered to defend himself. Plummeting stock values painted the office with gloom. Employees already drafting resignation letters in secret. One by one, partners called, always opening with, "Sorry, Mr. Shen." Through it all, Ethan remained eerily calm. Every ladder he climbed was meant to reach her height. Now she was gone. What use were these hollow victories? After settling the termination contracts, Ethan walked out of the corporation. Noon sunlight hung heavy as he wandered the streets. Pausing at the curb, he watched a figure enter a convenience store across the road and emerge with a water bottle. She stood bathed in light, squinting up at the sun. Smiling, she said something to the person on the other end of the call. Her eyes curved into crescents. Ethan Shun stood watching from the side. A deafening roar filled his ears. His heart felt crumpled and smoothed out again by unseen hands. It took every ounce of his strength just to remain standing. The exact same features. A different hairstyle. She was taller now, and thinner. Her eyes shimmered like moonlit pools. Yet he knew instantly that was his Luna. 14 days after their wedding, his Luna had returned. Not a hallucination, yet always just beyond his grasp. Sometimes she appeared at supermarkets buying snacks. Sometimes strolling down streets arm in arm with friends. Sometimes in residential compounds walking her cat on a leash. And sometimes the cat was Snow White with odd-eyed heterochromia, just like her. That same careless allure. Ethan didn't dare approach, could only stand transfixed at a distance. She half-lidded her eyes, calling to her cat, though he couldn't hear her voice. Ethan read the cat's name from her lips. Gao, Machi. She lowered her head with a smile, her eyes curving like crescent moons. Sunlight fell upon her shoulders, rendering her skin so pale it seemed translucent. Ethan Shun watched, yet his heart twisted as if carved by knives. Visible, untouchable, the circle whispered that Ethan Shun had gone mad. Mentioning his name carried a tinge of pity. How a man once so formidable had turned delusional after his wife's death. He wouldn't even resist when targeted. They'd expected a rising business star, only to watch him flicker out like Shen, ephemeral bloom. Sigh, such is fate's cruel jest. Ethan paid no heed, chasing after Luna Song instead. He couldn't approach, so he followed, step after step, until she vanished. A futile attempt to quench thirst with poison. When reason lingered, he knew she was a mirage. But later, she was vivid, alive, close enough that each wind-tossed strand of her hair seemed real. Was this truly an illusion? Or perhaps reality? He could no longer tell. So, when that car barreled toward the figure on the road, Ethan didn't think. His body lunged forward on instinct. Meanwhile, my fiancé Ethan, alerted by my call, was rushing to the scene. I couldn't bear to watch her die before my eyes. And yet, that was just an illusion. The crushing impact sent waves of agony through his body, viscera twisting, bones threatening to shatter. Noise clamored in his ears, growing louder, wave upon wave. His body temperature steadily dropped. Yet, Ethan Shen kept staring fixedly at that one spot until she walked further and further away, vanished without a trace.